Hello, and welcome to Makers.dev episode, as my Midwestern grandmother would say, farty far. Chris, hello.
Hello.
I'm greeting you from the same continent this time, and I'm very excited to be home.
Yes, same continent. The lag is noticeably improved, so that is great.
Yes. Also, the internet here, so good. Oh, I just need to take a second. I love being home. All of my stuff is here. I have a washer. I have a dryer. I know where my food is coming from. I've got all these systems in place for getting stuff done. Like, travel is fun and also exhausting. And I forget that when I'm home. Like, it gets boring after a while. And I'm like, I have the thirst for adventure and I want to go off and explore new lands. And then I do that. And then a couple of weeks into it, I'm like, I miss all the things from being at home. And I'm sure a couple weeks from now, I'm going to be looking wistfully at my photos of the vacation to be like, I wish I was back in Rome. That was so much fun. And I would like to work on appreciating the place that I am, because there are benefits to wherever I happen to be. And I don't need things to be different at all from how they are right now to be enjoying life.
Yeah. I was reading once somewhere about how people always try to plan vacations for the longest possible time, but if you actually plan it for like a day or two shorter than you think it should be, then when you get to the end, you're like, oh, I wish I had more vacation, and then you can think fondly on that instead of like, oh, I'm sick of being away from home, you know? Yeah, I don't know.
A month was a long time. For Europe, though, I don't know of any other way to do it, because I lose like 2 or 3 days on either end of jet lag of just, not completely, but I feel unfunctional. It's a solid 20 hours to do the travel, and then the next day I'm feeling super groggy, and really the only thing I can functionally do is get to the place where I'm staying and feed myself and go to bed. And so with a 4-day transition cost of anything happening in Europe, I felt a higher pressure to combine a bunch of things all at once. So I don't know what to do for next time. I think it was actually fine. I got some work done and was able to do the conference, and maybe if I changed anything, it would be to have a little bit more chill time. I really just had like 1 week in Rome that I was able to be in the same place consistently, with a place that had a washer. Laundry's so hard to do if you don't have a washer like in your place. You gotta go there and get coins in a local currency and cart your stuff, and it's going to be a 20-minute walk, or you got to figure out how the buses work. Like, what a luxury! You just have a hamper in your room, and when that gets full, you take it and dump it in the laundry room 20 steps away, and then you forget about it, and then have to run it again the next day. But it's fine, because who cares? And then you put it in the dryer, and it's done. It's amazing. Modern miracles. I love it. So I think if I changed anything, it would just be like being in the same place for another week that was a place that wasn't exciting to be able to do more work. But other than that, it was a good trip. I learned more about myself and the world.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. What did you get up to this last week?
So I did some of my masters, the CUDA lab. I can now program up and down in CUDA, so that's a new skill I have, which is kind of neat. And then I also did a lot of thinking after last week's episode about, so last week we talked about focus, and should we focus and on what? And, do I refocus on meeting place? Do I start a new product? Do I just do my masters for a while? So yeah, I kind of did some thinking this week.
I also thought a lot about that framework of an experiment. I think our brains work very similarly in this way, that they're sort of maximized for novelty and exploration. And so I think both of us see an outsized return from external systems, like codifying all the different options that we have and weighing them in some external way, and then using that to choose what we're doing. So I also have a bunch of stuff to talk about from that. But I'm curious how you're thinking about the different options of things to focus on that pops up.
Yeah, so I actually did one of the experiments that we talked about as part of that thinking process. I said I wanted to cold email 10 people to try to talk to them about, creating content and stuff. That is one of the ideas I'm exploring, right? How to use AI to direct what content you're creating for, like, a company blog. And so I did that, and I talked to some people, and that was really cool. I didn't want to do the whole like get on Zoom and stuff. I didn't have enough time to do that this week, but I talked to them not with a product in mind, just generally being interested about how they create content for their company blogs. The way I found them was, it's funny. There's so many people in the world that write for the company blogs, but when you actually have to sit down and like make a list of them, it's kind of tricky. So I actually went to a few conference pages that I was looking at, and I went to all the sponsors and went to their blogs, and then contacted the authors, and I just asked questions. I used LinkedIn and Twitter to contact them, and just asked them questions about like how they generated content ideas and stuff. And I actually had some really interesting conversations just about how they, did content generation. Almost everyone just thinks of an idea and writes it. That's what I got. And so I was trying to figure out if they had any tools, right? If they used anything like Ahrefs is probably the biggest content tool, keyword planning tool out there. But most people for technology blogs anyway think about what they want to write and just write it. But I did my experiment, and I wrote. So my experiment was, can I contact 10 people? And success was I contacted 10 people, and so success.
Congratulations! Successful experiment.
Yeah. So that's what I did as part of that process.
It's so funny to me that their method is just think of an idea and then write it. It's I guess that's sort of how an AI would do it too, right? Like, it doesn't know how it's writing the article. It just gets the idea from somewhere deep in its artificial neurons and then writes post about it. Okay, so to recap my understanding of your idea from last week, this could be a tool for generating content for a business blog that's doing some keyword research. It scans your website. So for Fileinbox, you would scan my website and my existing articles and see, this has something to do with files and transferring files, and you take that information and do some SEO keyword search ranking magic to figure out, here's a big topic. Here's all of the content on Christian's blog lit up this set of neurons, and there's 5 other neurons that aren't present on Christian's blog that are really heavily lit up. So those are really good examples of articles he could write. And so for me, that might be something like file conversions or how to send encrypted documents or something. And then you could go an extra step. So you're suggesting what the keywords could be, sort of as Ahrefs or something else would do. But then you can also write a draft of the article for me. Is that accurate?
So sort of. I wouldn't go as far as to say a draft, because AI is actually really bad at drafts still. And what I don't want, this is a little bit on the line. Like I don't want an AI to flood, content out, and like that's not the purpose of what I'm trying to do. Also because the quality of the articles would be super low and bad. But what I think it could be very useful for, exactly. So it scans your site. It says your site seems to be about this. You are ranking for these keywords. You should be ranking for these other ones. Here are some example. I would probably go as far as post titles and maybe like an abstract or like key bullet points to hit. But then you would actually be responsible for writing the article yourself. Yeah. And so the whole idea is you have a company blog or company pages, you should be, covering the right keywords so people can find you. And, but sometimes it's hard to see that as a business owner. So this is basically like, hey, you should write about this and you'll probably get more traffic. And then the other part of it, and that's why it's not exactly focused yet, because the other part of it is like, once you write the articles, you could tweet about them at some schedule. You could use Instagram or whatever. You could create these ads for them. So it's like generating copy from your existing articles as well that you could tweet out or make ads for or that kind of stuff. So it's trying to stay away from the spammy aspects of like using AI to generate content while also still being very valuable to a business owner. Like, you have this real estate that is your blog. You should be using it for these things. So that's the idea.
Cool. Okay. I misunderstood this idea when you talked about it last week in several ways. You're not generating AI drafts for the article,
right,
which I'm very happy with, but you could use AI to condense the content into social media posts. So after I wrote the article, you could look at it and say, here are 5 example social media posts that with snazzy sort of clickbaity titles that might be good for social media. And then in the future, that could be like an integration word, one click import to buffer, and then that's queued up. Okay, cool. I'm really curious to learn more about your conversations with the 10 people that you cold called. First of all, great job. That's like the type of work that I struggle with the most, because it seems so straightforward of like, oh yeah, just reach out to people and talk to them. That's what marketing is, Christian. You built a thing that's valuable, or you want to build a thing that's valuable. You want to build a thing that's the most valuable to this certain person. So they would love to talk to you. And then I just sort of leave it there. Never actually talk to them. So good job doing the thing that's marketing work that's consistently difficult for me to do. What's your read on if this is a thing that they would use? If I'm a content creator and I go through this system of just coming up with an idea and then writing about it, I might feel like that's perfectly fine. What's your sales pitch to me about why I would need something like this to come up with content ideas?
Yeah. So what I learned from that is that technology blog people are a bad audience for this particular thing.
Okay.
Because universally they were just like, I just think of an idea and then just write about it.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was, the experiment was not, does this support my hypothesis that this would be a good business? Because it proved exactly the opposite. But the experiment was still a success because,
yes.
I
you
did the
contacted
work.
10 people.
So, right. So yeah. I mean, what I learned from the experiment is don't do this for technology bloggers because they don't use tools. At least the 10 people I talked to, or I didn't talk to 10 people, but yeah, I contacted 10 people. The people I talked to don't use tools, right?
Makes sense. What's the next step? You could do a second experiment with, I don't know, food bloggers. Saying that, I got a bad taste in my mouth. Thinking like the recipe sites where I'm just trying to figure out how long I need to hard boil an egg for, dude. I don't need to hear about the egg salad you made that reminds you of home when you were growing up in Massachusetts. And, oh God, I have to scroll. There's like 6 ads. I just need the one number. I just need to know. It's 5 minutes. It's water to a boil. You put it in for 5 minutes. You take it out. Oh man, sorry. That triggered a pocket of something that. Okay. Second experiment could be reaching out to a different type of blogger that's not a technology blogger. What do you think of our next steps?
Yeah, so this brought up a bunch of thoughts like that, like who do I contact next if I think the idea is still good? Who do I, and it brought up even more questions like, so we talked about focus, right? What do I want to focus on? And who do I want to? So say this works. It's going to work for 5 or 10 years, right? And I'm going to have to talk to these people for 5 or 10 years. Do I want to be talking to, social media influencers for 5 years? No. So it brought up a lot of questions about what to focus on. And just because, and it's exactly what you said last time, which is I was focusing on the tech first, which is what we do, right? We focus on the tech first. And I was like, this is so cool. But if I have to actually think about who I would have to talk to in order to sell this, it's probably not, my ideal day. Yeah. And so what it led me to is I made thinking less about the idea and more about what I want to focus on, right? And so I made a list of things that I could be focusing on, and that things was 8 things long. And so I'm going to focus on 8 things, Christian.
Okay.
No.
Can we actually, par for the course for us. Narrowing down a list of only 8 things to focus on, that might actually be a focus. But I think there may be outsized gains to perhaps focusing even more on some of those 8 things and ignoring some of the others for now. Let's dig into the list. What else is on the list?
So it's Meeting Place. It is, I don't have a list in front of me, but it's like more videos. Should I do more videos for Egghead, right? Or my own sites. I don't even remember the other 2 things or the other 6 things. I mean,
so this might actually be.
I
good.
know.
Yeah. This it's a cheap way to do this filtering. It might not be like entirely rigorous of build a decision matrix, but like. I think the fact that those 2 come most easily to mind is not something to be overlooked. There's a lot of mysterious processes going on in your subconscious of like the things that you are consistently thinking about. Those resonate with me also, having talked to you over the past year-ish that we've been doing this podcast. Like Meeting Place has remained a project forefront on your brain. There's something there. I don't know if the something is like you need to definitively give it up or sell it on micro acquire or something, or if the thing is you see a lot more potential there than you realized, and you're just struggling with like how to push that forward. And then videos for Egghead. That's a thing that you've done that's brought you a lot of success in the past. That's I think your audience on Twitter overlaps really well with the type of person who would be watching that content on Egghead. I want to hear more about those two things. What are some experiments that you might do to push each of those foci forward?
Yeah, so intellectually, I agree that I should focus on those two things, and for some reason, emotionally, I'm like, why am I having such trouble? So I mean, Egghead would be like just continue what I'm doing. I haven't done one for a while, but I enjoy it when I do it, and I make money from it. So that would be. I even have the next, like I've talked with them about the next couple of things that I should do videos on. So like planning time in my schedule to actually do videos is probably the next. Like the experiment would be just spend 2 hours a day on it for the next 4 days, right? Do that, or 5 days, whatever. For Meeting Place, so Meeting Place is a little bit trickier. One of the reasons I struggle to work on it is some technical debt makes it a little painful to work on in some ways. And then there are a couple other things. So what I need to do is probably the same thing. Plan time to fix a couple of the things that I know are preventing me from being excited about working on it. And after that happens, like after I just get back on the flow of it, and after those few, like I have to force myself to do a few things. After that, I'm pretty sure I will be able to work on some of the stuff I know is higher value. So those are probably the two things that I have to do to move forward on those two projects.
I'd love to talk about the emotional hangups in that, because that's also something that I struggle with that I can't quite put my finger on. But like, everything you just said sounds so reasonable. That sounds like, yes, of course, making videos for Egghead. We've determined that's one of the things you want to be focused on. What would pushing that forward look like? Well, it would look like spending 2 hours a day on it, thinking of new content ideas or recording videos. Like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Same with Meeting Place, the being held back by painful technical debt. Okay, well, getting rid of the technical debt, planning how you could fix the things that are preventing you from being excited to work on it. Like, that's the way to push that forward. And for me, getting to that point, it seems to me like, okay, we've solved the problem. I have the plan now. I know what the next step forward is. And what inevitably happens is I spend, the next 30 episodes just talking about how I'm going to recode Fileinbox and make it serverless. When, if I took all the time that I spent just on this podcast talking about how the next most important thing to do in Fileinbox that makes the most sense is to make it serverless. If I took that time and pushed it all together and instead devoted that time to actually making it serverless, it would be done. I'm curious about this new framework of framing things as experiments, because that feels like it might be a tactic to sort of feel out like, okay, I've really dug into exactly how much time I think this is going to take and what success would look like, so I can celebrate when I get there, and it's not just this constantly moving goalpost. And any other things that we need to just pin down. It feels like a good method of feeling out, like, okay, where are the bad feelings in this? Where are the obstacles that would stop me from doing this? So I also want to talk about this with Fileinbox, but while we're on Meeting Place, I'd love to feel that out more. Like, I'm not quite sure what to ask. Like,
so I totally agree, and I think the experiment way is a great way to go about it, because specifically, so last week after the call, I wrote down the experiment that I was going to contact 10 people, right?
Yeah.
I got 2 people in and said, "This is dumb. I don't want to do this."
Yeah.
But I had written down that I was going to do it, so I did it because I knew I was going to have to come and talk with and talk about it.
Yeah.
And so if I wouldn't have done the experiment thing, first of all, I probably would have contacted 0 people.
Yeah.
And even if I started contacting people, I would have contacted 2 and then given up.
Yeah.
And so I think my takeaway from this can't be to spend 2 hours a day on making Egghead videos. It has to be write an experiment for the next week related to Egghead videos. and I sit down and I write the thing, and I have to decide while writing. So my takeaway from this point is just write the experiment.
Okay.
And after the experiment's written, that's the decision. Yeah.
I like that. That feels good. And then you can choose after the experiment's written, like, do I actually want to spend my time in this way? Okay, that might be a place where I'm also missing the loop. Is like, it's not enough to just figure out what the next step is. I need to push one step further and like evaluate. Okay, but do I even want to be moving in this direction and frame out just a little bit more? Spending my time in this way, success would look like this. Could we do that right now? Could we frame out an experiment for you for pushing forward videos on Egghead?
So we could. My fear is that I can't think freely enough in the time constraints we have here that would
That's fair.
tell me, right? Yeah.
Okay.
I think the experiment is spend 2 hours. So the other thing about experiments, so this is important for anyone listening who wants to do it too. You should focus on things that you can do, not outcomes that you can have. So the thing I can do, so for contacting 10 people, it was I contacted 10 people. Like that's the experiment, to contact 10 people. It's not to have 10 conversations, because that might mean contact 10 people, or it might mean contact 1,000, and you can't control that. And so that's feels a lot worse. So focus on things you can control. So my control would be spend 2 hours a day for 5 days, right?
Yep.
So that's my current idea, but I have to think through, exactly what that means for my life and schedule and stuff.
Cool.
But, yeah.
I like that. I'm reminded of James Clear's book Atomic Habits, talking about how when you're forming a new habit, it can't be outcome driven. It has to be just like, what can you actually control? And I think that hypothesis part of an experiment, of like what you expect to happen, is where you can put the external outcome that you're expecting. But the experiment can still be successful if your hypothesis is disproven. If you for the experiment you did last week of contacting 10 people, like the procedure was, I'm going to contact 10 people, and perhaps your hypothesis was, I think I can get 3 of them on the phone. And then when you actually do it, it turns out, I could only get 2 people on the phone. Well, you still did the experiment, so points for doing the experiment. You did the work. You put in the input of like, if I contact 10 people, then I expect to get 3 people to contact me. So you did the 10 people, and then now you have a better model of reality of like, if you did this type of experiment again, you would have a better idea of what input would get what output. But yes, very good point. Like, focus on what you can actually physically do. Cool. Okay. Is it the same with Meeting Place, for making an experiment with Meeting Place of removing some of that technical debt?
Yeah, I'd have to think about that.
Okay.
I'd have to think more about that, because it's probably not just a time thing. I mean, I could just do time things, but I also like hate tracking my time, and so like I hate saying I'm going to spend 2 hours on something, because I'm like, that's a silly way to divide up things. Yeah, I'll think more about what that experiment is.
We should talk more about tracking time, because I love tracking.
I know
time.
This is where you and I differ a lot. I absolutely hate it. Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you hate it? I'm curious about that.
I don't know. So, okay, I will say I hate it when I'm reporting it to other people, right? So anytime I have to track time and report it to other people, that's when I'm just like,
oh, for sure. Yeah.
But I've never tried tracking it for myself, so maybe that's the difference. Yeah, not sure.
Okay. I'd like to nudge you a little bit. I also really resented when I had to track my time for other people. It felt so arbitrary, and I just came up with all these reasons why it was dumb and how they should instead be evaluating me based on my performance. And it is a completely different experience doing it for myself, because now it's like this optimization game of, I spent this much time editing the podcast last week. Let me see if I can beat that this week. And I spent this much time on YouTube last week. Let me see if I can cut that in half this next week. It's really valuable metrics. That's of all the tracking I do of like Fitbit data and sleep data, that's what I'm consistently getting the most valuable insights out of. And I don't know if that's just a phase, but that's my nudge. I think it could potentially be very useful. And if you'd like to get set up on a time tracking platform that I hear is excellent, you could try Midnight.app. I'm very good friends with the developer, and he'd love to get you onboarded. Cool. Okay. Is it my turn to talk about experiments?
Yes. So I think I'm going to, my takeaway from this call is I'm going to write down 2 experiments, one for Meeting Place, one for Egghead, right after this call. And that's the only thing I'm promising, is I'm going to write down those experiments.
That sounds great. I'm excited to talk about those next week. I had wanted to come to this call with a menu of experiments that you could choose from, showing you like, I put all this work into doing the experiments, and they all have titles and due dates and expectations. And I don't have that because traveling across the ocean was exhausting. That was so much. I tracked my time to the second for all my travel, and I was in the task of traveling by plane for 22 hours straight, including like leaving my hotel room and to the moment I got back. That sounds hypocritical that I just sort of estimated that based on number of hours. I haven't actually looked at the amount of time, but I could. I could tell you exactly how much time it was. But it was about 22 hours. Just exhausting, and went through multiple countries. So, and have grace with myself. Like that's okay. It's enough that I just like got home safely and am well slept and have fed myself. But what I was just percolating on the whole time is like 2 things. The first is I would love to codify exactly what an experiment is. And I had several ideas of like, part of an experiment could be the amount of time that you think it's going to take you. And then you could update that time as you go through the experiment. And then you could see a little graph of like, initially I thought this was going to take me 3 hours. And then I thought it was going to take me 6 hours. And then I thought it was going to take me 12 hours. And then I thought it was going to take me 13 hours. And then it took me 14 hours. The shape of that graph is going to be so interesting to me because I perpetually underestimate the amount of time something's going to take. And that feels like it could be a superpower if I go through like 10 of these experiments and realize, the graph looks the same every time I do it. I underestimate by about a factor of 4. And then my estimate of it when I'm like 70% through is pretty accurate, or whatever the shape of the graph is going to be. So that was the first thing I wanted to talk about is just like while we're in this mode of codifying what an experiment is, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what the attributes of an experiment are. If we were making this into a Rails app, not that I'm going to, I don't need to, but I might make this into an app and buy another domain name and set up another thing. I'm going to. I can't trick myself anymore. What might the attributes of like what you want to track in this experiment be? Like, obviously, it's going to have a title. It's going to have a method of like the input of work that you need to do, and then that method is going to have a time estimate, and that time estimate can be an array of times with a timestamp of every time you made an estimate. What are some other things that you think make sense to have in this model of work?
Yeah. So, first of all, it's hilarious that you're going to distract yourself by writing an app or recording time.
Oh my god.
Separate from that, so the things I wrote down were, I didn't write down a title because it's not an app; it's just a piece of paper. I wrote down what I was going to do, so what I could actually control. So,
yes.
Contact 10 people. That's what I control. I wrote down a hypothesis, which was actually not about how many people would contact me back, although looking back, that probably should have been it. But it was more about like what they were going to say, what I thought they were going to say. So it's kind of like there could be multiple hypotheses. Hypotheses.
Yeah.
Or it could just all be one big one, right? And then the 2 things after are like what went well and what went badly. Or no, sorry. Before you write what does failure look like and what does success look like. So you have to write those before you do it, and then after you do it, you do a retrospective about what went well and what went poorly, based on your success and failure criteria. So So beforehand you write what does good and bad look like, and then afterwards you say what the outcome was based on what good and bad looks like.
For your cold calling people, what does failure and success look like? Just like, did you do the work of contacting 10 people? Okay.
Yeah, failure was, did I contact 10 people? Yeah. And success was I contacted 10 people. So and then I guess there's a separate like results section, which is like what you learned based on all that. So that's separate from did the experiment fail or was it a success?
Yeah, and that might surprise you.
Yeah.
Because going into the experiment, I imagine you weren't thinking that you may have learned that you don't even want to be contacting bloggers, that's not a valuable audience.
Yeah, that was kind of like something I learned based on thinking about it after the fact. And then, yeah, it's like, if these technology people don't actually want to use this, then who would? Probably like social media managers, maybe. And I could do a whole other experiment for that. Or I could just say, I don't really want to be talking to a bunch of social media managers for my whole life. So, yeah.
Social media managers. What went well and what went poorly? I would say one of the things that went well is like you were able to contact 10 people. You figured out a method to do that and pushed past the resistance after the second person to reach out to the other 8. I would say also something that sounds like it went well was you were actually able to talk to several of them, which is really cool. Knowing that you can do that, knowing that like you can't just pick an arbitrary group of people, and you have a method now of being able to get them on the phone. Did you video chat them or just over email?
No, it was all back and forth on Twitter DMs or LinkedIn messages.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't have the time to. I normally would have tried to get them on Zoom or something, but I didn't have the time to do that. So, yeah, I think that also made more of them actually able to talk to me because I didn't ask for a Zoom call or anything. I just asked, like how do they get ideas and do they use any tools?
Yeah.
That's basically all I asked.
Cool. Yeah, that feels like an easier ask. Okay, yeah, so that seems like it went well. That like you have that in your pocket now of a method that you can use to contact anyone on Twitter, which is a lot of people. What else do you feel like went well, and what do you feel like went poorly?
I mean, that was pretty much it. Everything else sort of. But I will say the experiment was a success, right? But
yes,
it was sad that the what I thought was true, which was like people are interested in using. I guess my hypothesis is that people would be interested in using tools to generate content ideas. I don't think that's true anymore. At least for those, I think I talked to 5 or 6 people total, cool. So out of the 10. So for all of them, yeah, it was just like I just think about ideas and I keep a big list of ideas and I pick from them. That was very common. But you don't need a tool to do that. That's just like Notepad, right?
Yeah.
So,
man, how much better is this from a business perspective than investing all the time to make this and then finding out, not only are people not actually interested in this, but I don't like interacting with the people that this is for. Like,
right.
You were able to find that out so much faster. And if you built it, like you're in a position where just the act of building it would be useful. That wouldn't have been wasted time from like a learning or technological perspective. But I think when you brought this up initially, it was in the context of like wanting to refocus on products and wanting to make more of like a micro-confy business. And so it sounds like you were able to clarify for yourself that this is not the highest yield place to be focusing on from a business perspective, and you were able to do that in a couple of Twitter DMs and reaching out to 10 people. So yeah, I'd say that's a huge success. Experimented with a new place to be building a business and determined that no, that's not the place to push forward.
No. And to be clear, I have nothing against social media managers. I just do not speak the same language as them most of the time, right? So it'd be totally like not my wheelhouse to talk to them.
Yeah. To be clear, I have something against social. No, they're fine. I'm sure they're perfectly fine people. Cool. Okay, that sounds good. I'm really obsessed with this idea of a graph over time, of the estimated time. That feels like it would solve a problem I've been trying, but I'm not going to focus on that. Okay, so that feels good. That feels like a good MVP of like the format of what an experiment looks like. Most important part being like the steps of how to perform the experiment need to be something that I am in control of. So not like get this many people on the phone, but send messages to this number of people. Or I guess if I wanted to make it a bit harsher, I could say just like keep messaging people until you've gotten as many people through the funnel. That wouldn't be completely unreasonable.
Yeah, as long as your success and criteria don't, or your. Oh, the other thing I included was a time limit. I actually said by the end of the day I will contact 10 people, and that forced me to do it. But if you do more of the like, I will get 10 people to respond to me, then you have to like, it's like an open-ended one. So I think both would be okay, but the time limit really helped me like do it because it was after our call, and I was like, I'm gonna by the end of the day I got to contact 10 people.
Yeah.
So I did. The other thing I would say is if you think you are obsessed about a graph of how expectations change over time, what is an experiment you could run for that? So I'm thinking like, don't make a Rails app. Don't make a Rails app. Say you will for the next experiment you will record your time on a piece of paper, and then at the end you can make a graph in Excel if you want, and see how the success and failure would be. Like how do you feel basically about seeing that graph? Like when you see it, maybe you're like, oh, this is dumb, I don't want to do it, or maybe you're like, that was really motivating.
That makes so much more sense. That would be so much less work.
So
I just want to buy another domain name, Chris. It could be experiments.app.dev.
I'm sure it could.
Okay. No, I'm not going to do that. Then one of our listeners is going to snipe a perfect domain name from me, and I'm going to be sad. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, cool. That's the first part. So the second part is I had a bunch of ideas percolating for potential experiments I could be running on Fileinbox. And I'm not quite sure why. Like, I'm working on so many things. I don't know why I was only thinking about Fileinbox. For some reason, after getting back from MicroConf, I have periods of like refocusing on that business for another month or two, and it might be because that's like the most financially successful thing that I've done so far. And when I'm listening to the talks, that's the business that I can directly apply all the advice to. When people are talking about like blogging for a business and here's how to maximize SEO, like that's the project. That's the only project I have that would actually make sense to do, because that's the only thing. Well, it's not the only thing I'm making money from. That's like the traditional software as a service thing that I have that I can apply things for. Yes. So here are some ideas I have for experiments that I could be running on Fileinbox. First, I have this broad category of I could be doing app integrations on different stores. I like WordPress. I talked with Jordan Gall a few months ago, and he was like, you should do this on Shopify or DocuSign or BigCommerce or WooCommerce. These e-commerce platforms where I'm sure something in that people are going to need to be getting files. Squarespace also, I think, has a plugin system. I'm not sure. That's something that I see a lot of people currently on Fileinbox doing. Just any sort of like generic website builder. So that's a big pocket of things, but the overall experiment might look something like do a rough sort of like this is probably going to be a high yield platform to be integrating on. The work is make a plugin, get your plugin on their app store, and I would expect to see, I don't know, if I was getting like one new user per week from that, I think that would be a positive ROI. And that would, if I got that, like, I think it would make sense to do 20 more of those. And now I'm getting 20 new customers a week, and now I'm rolling in the dough. And then I buy a Cybertruck for all my friends, and then have my microcom talk with the graph going up to the right behind me. That's what I want. That's the thing I'm going to be focused on. So that's the first category of experiments. And then I have a category of things that are like things I know I should do that I feel like have been blocking me. And that's like recoding this to be serverless. And like before I do that, even fixing OAuth with Dropbox. I'm embarrassed to say this. I'm not even sure if the Dropbox OAuth is broken right now. I haven't dug into to fix that. I love how you phrased that earlier, talking about, where did I put this? You have painful technical debt and you need to fix a couple things that are preventing you from being excited to work on it. When you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly how I'm framing what recoding this and making it serverless would be, because there are so many things, and my God, most of this code base is, I think, 7 or 8 years old now, and I didn't know anything 7 or 8 years ago in good software design, and there's models there that just don't make sense, and flows of things that don't make sense, and I have 3 different database services I'm using, and 4 different cloud providers for different things, and if I could consolidate all of that into, okay, I don't need Redis and Postgres because Firestore has this real-time built-in queuing system. I can just be using Firestore, and I don't need to be worried about upgrading to a higher tier for these VPSs or for the database because everything is just auto-scaling. So that's the second category of experiment to be running. But no, I would like to frame that as an experiment, because I think the hypothesis there is something like, by investing the time in fixing this code base, I'm going to feel more excited about working on it. I'll stop there and get your thoughts, because I've said a lot of words. What are your thoughts so far on these 2 broad categories of potential experiments?
Sure. So I have thoughts about them. Some of the things I'm about to say are exactly opposite of what I said to myself earlier, and so this is you're getting what I tell other people instead of tell myself.
The good advice.
That's right. For the integrations one, I think this is a great direction that you could take it. However, your experiments were very big. So your experiments, I heard, were like make an integration for a specific, for many different things.
Yeah.
And the integration could take weeks, right? Like maybe not, but sounds like it could. So I would challenge you to try to find a smaller experiment. So for example, like instead of making the integration, maybe talk to someone who has done that integration before to sort of see how hard it is and how valuable it was. So like for each of the things you're considering, like try to talk to someone who's done that integration for their app and just get a bunch of information about it. That'd probably be the first thing that I would try to do. And then the next thing would be to try to just do one of them. So after those conversations, pick one of them, and then the experiment is I make this integration and see how it goes, right? And run it for 2 months or something and see how many new customers I get. So that's probably what I would do, instead of like thinking about I need to do 20 integrations. I just need to talk to 10 or 20 people and then do one. That sounds more that sounds better to me. For the tech debt one, go ahead.
That's great advice. I think my impulse in these sorts of things is like, how can I push this business forward with more code? But yeah, if I could just talk to someone who had done an integration on one of these platforms before, I have a dozen questions I would ask them about, like, what does traffic look like, and what do better performing plugins on the site look like, and how difficult was it to do it, and how much of a pain is the platform? And if I just have a conversation like that with, I don't know, 10 people and sort of sprinkle around the different stores. Oh, there's 2 people I met at MicroConf Europe who are doing this. That's going to be so easy to do. Yeah, I'm just going to schedule them for a call. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Okay, good impulse, pushing me away from code and towards talking to people. That's probably always going to be good advice for me. Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Technically that.
For the tech debt one, so I remember telling you several episodes ago that if you are not excited about the code base, then you should just fix it, and then you'll be excited about it again. And as far as I could tell, you didn't fix it. So the experiment was you're going to fix it, and failure. So now, what is the new experiment? It could be hours, like dedicate some number of hours to the tech debt. It could be just like make a list of everything you want to change about the thing, and not convert it to server lists, but like I'm going to do all these things, and then pick one thing off the list. I don't know. I have less advice here because I am the same way. Like I have some tech debt in Meeting Place. It makes me not super excited to work on it. The answer is to fix it, but I'm not excited to fix it, so I don't. Right. So I have less advice here because I'm struggling with the same thing. But those are my ideas.
A minimum amount of time makes sense to me. Something I've found in this sort of thing is like, if I just get started, that's the hardest part. If I sit down and set a Pomodoro timer and say, okay, for the next 25 minutes, I'm going to work on cleaning up this code base and or working on this the serverless code base to get feature parity. The hardest part is just getting in my chair and setting the timer. And once I do that, I can get in flow really quickly. And thinking through what the work is going to look like, it's I'm going to be fixing so many problems all at the same time that have just been plaguing me for so many years. And I'm going to be doing it on this platform that I'm really excited about. It's going to be in React. It's going to be on Tailwind. It's going to be on Firebase. Like, these are really exciting platforms for me. And it's going to be work that I feel like only I could do. Other developers could do it, but like I've been entrenched in this world for so long and solving this problem for so long that I know what all the edge cases are, that like to sit down and actually do this as quickly as I'm thinking I'm probably going to be able to do it, it is going to feel really good. So maybe the experiment is just like I have an ambitious timeline of how quickly I think I could do this in my head. So you saying limiting it to time is resonating with me. I feel like I could just, if I set the experiment as something like I can get to this benchmark in 10 hours of work, I think that would be reasonable and motivating enough to actually do the work. That feels like a good step forward. That I've been harping on for so long, it just feels like I need to do it. I'm not sure if the framework of doing it as an experiment is going to make sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. The other thing I was going to say, which I forgot, which is exactly opposite of what I told myself, is you already have people paying you, and so this tech debt thing is really not holding your business back. You need to do more marketing. So
yes,
that's the other thing I was going to say.
So that's actually the third category of experiment. At Rob Walling's talk at MicroConf, he quoted, one of his slides was a quote from Traction by Justin Morris, which was all of the different marketing channels on one slide that you can use as a SaaS. And Rob was like, yeah, I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I think this is all of them. And I took a picture of it and wrote it down, and I think I want to just run through those quickly with you. So as category number 3, experiments I'm looking for in this category are like, this is here's a marketing channel that you've been underinvesting in that would make a lot of sense to put more energy in, because it's unexplored. And one of the talk by the Veed guy at MicroConf, I think I mentioned this on the last podcast, but his framing of things seemed to be, you only really need one channel that works, and then once you find the one marketing channel that works, just throw everything you can at that one channel. So yeah, let's run down these really quick, and I just want to get your feedback on like if one of them sticks out to you as a place that I could be investing more time or running more experiments. First one's SEO. Fileinbox does pretty well on SEO right now. I accidentally did something really clever in SEO by the embed code embeds a link in other people's web pages, so I have a whole bunch of backlinks. So I feel like investments in SEO are outsized. I sort of tried to do that with audience ops, but I wasn't enjoying their content. I think what that might look like is making more pages, doing some more keyword research for like what are people Googling, and just make a web page and a video tutorial for every topic that is remotely related to file sending or receiving files. Next one is cold calling. I hate that. The idea of cold calling just sends cold shivers down my spine. It feels smarmy. Feels like, what do I even say when I get someone on the phone? Like, hello, buy my thing. That it just makes me feel uncomfortable. Display ads is something I'm interested in. Maybe advertising on forums, or I bought Google ads for a little while, but that didn't feel like it was converting really well. I have numbers on those that I might go on. Viral marketing feels like it would be difficult to do. I'm not sure what viral marketing, like what kind of viral marketing could I do for file transfers? Cold email also feels gross in the same way that cold calling feels. Affiliates are interesting because affiliates are something that I feel like would be easy to implement technically, but I don't know who would be doing affiliate marketing for me. That's not quite fitting. AdWords. Oh, he listed AdWords as a separate one. I like that together with display ads. What's the difference between AdWords and display ads? Is AdWords like a SEO?
I don't know. Display ads, does he mean like, so AdWords is specifically someone searching for it in Google? Maybe display ads are like it shows up in your Twitter feed, like.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so AdWords would be like searching advertisements, and then display ads are like on a website. Okay. So I've tried AdWords. It feels like it's not working. Display ads, I feel like I could push forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I have 11 more. Do you want to pause now, or should I keep pushing through?
Go for it.
We're going for it. Offline events is the next one. I don't like the idea of that. I also don't I don't know what a compelling. Oh, I guess I don't have to host the online event. I could like go to a conference or something. But I don't know who I'm going to a conference for Fileinbox. That's a very horizontal product. So that doesn't feel like something I could do. Facebook ads are interesting. I have the Facebook pixel embedded. I have oh, you know what? Now that I've been doing more video content and that I'm more comfortable doing videos, that feels like something I could be pushing forward more. That is something I'd like to experiment. Can I do a Facebook ad with a video and make that work? Next one is PR. That feels gross. Having people like write blog posts about me, I think, is what that means. I guess I don't know a lot about PR, but I don't like that. Next one is joint ventures. I'm not even sure what that would look like. Maybe if I partner with someone else who has something in a similar space, or if that might look like partnering with consultancies who build people's websites, and they're helping me to. They sell my product as a bundle of their package. That feels hazier. Offline ads is the next one. That the idea of having a billboard feels cool. Or like a magazine ad. Oh, a magazine ad is interesting. Maybe like a magazine ad for, I don't know, sign printers or accountants or something. That might be informed just by talking to more people and understanding where they're getting new information from. Next one is business development, and I don't understand what that means. I think business development is like a generic term for a lot of the other things we've talked about here. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, it's basically talking to other businesses and seeing how. I don't know really the difference between that and integration with like other businesses, but business development is usually big companies talking to you to see if they want to acquire you. That's like usually how that goes. But it could be like big companies like reselling your service or something like that. Maybe that's what it means.
Okay, I'll table that one for now then. Content marketing, I lump that one together with SEO. Content marketing though. Well, no, yeah, that would be like, I think to me that would look like filming tutorials and writing more tutorial blog posts and making more content to help people solve these problems. That one feels good. That feels like there's a lot of experiments I could be doing there. Integration marketing is sort of what we're talking about with this, getting in different app stores. The more things I'm integrated with, the more app stores I'm ranked in. And a lot of these app stores are tiny. There's just like 100 apps. So that feels like potentially low-hanging fruit. So content marketing and integration marketing, I think, are the two on this list that I'm currently most excited about. Email marketing, I'm not quite sure how that would be different than cold email. I guess if I had like free content leads, that's sort of what Audience Ops was doing. They could get people on my email list if they asked for a free PDF that is like a PDF guide. It doesn't quite resonate with me though. I don't know a compelling list of emails that I can send people to help them with receiving files. It's sort of like a one and done. Like you do it and you're done. It might be easier if I niched down more and could talk about, I don't know, let me send you my free guide to encrypting documents or something, and then that leads to, you can send encrypted documents with Fileinbox. That one feels hazier. Guest posting, which, I guess being a guest podcaster is not on this list. I don't like that. I don't know what post I would do. I guess if I go to accounting blogs and was like, here's a guest post I've written for your blog about how to send files. That also feels kind of smarmy. And then last one, engineering is marketing, our favorite method of marketing. I just want to code all day, make new features. Something. The thing I talked about last week of the dude from Veed recommended implementing the feature to convert documents. That feels like it would be in this category of engineering is marketing. That like making new features and then I could advertisement them in this different content way. That feels the most fun, and that I think is the only thing that I've done in marketing consistently because I enjoy it the most. That's the whole list of all of the different marketing channels you can do. What stood out to you in that list?
Yeah, so I wrote down a bunch of things. So you excel at doing stuff like engineering as marketing and stuff like that, and not quite as much at cold calling and stuff. So
no, hate it.
Yeah. Affiliates were interesting to me, although it would mean you talking to people. But so there are probably people, for example, who like specialize in setting up law firms with all the stuff they need to do online. Could you cold email, which you hate doing, cold email the people who like set up law firms with stuff? I don't even know if this is a thing, but it's probably a thing. Could you find like 10 of those firms and email them and ask if they have a file sending thing and if they would be interested in being affiliates for you? Mm-hmm. You don't have to set up a whole affiliate program to get like one person to resell your stuff. Mm-hmm. So it might be worth reaching out until you get at least one person on the phone who's like, this seems interesting. But that is exactly what you are not good at or what you don't enjoy. The next thing, I think the integration stuff is very interesting. So if you can first talk to people who've done integrations and then do at least one integration somewhere, I think that's probably way more in your wheelhouse and more likely to get done. Mm-hmm. Like ads are interesting, but they're tricky for all the reasons you're talking about. You're a niche product in that you're just about files, but you are a horizontally niche product. It means you're just doing file sending, but you're across any industry. Mm-hmm. And so I think it'd be tricky to do ads for that because like you could probably do Google AdWords for, something very specific, like how do I add, a file upload box to my website or something like that. And then what else? Oh, the other thing is you could combine a couple of these. If, for example, you made a landing page just for sign printers about how to make a file upload box for your sign printing website, and then ran ads to that for very specific niche things. Mm-hmm. So you could combine a couple of things that way. Yeah. So I think what I'm saying is the integrations, that's a good option, I think. And then maybe like you could combine a couple of these things by doing some very specific either content or pages just for specific verticals, and then drive very specific Google ads to those pages.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. I have a whole other one too, which is you talked about affiliate or offline events or conferences. I can't remember which Y Combinator event it was, but one of the online videos, I'll try to link to it, was like for some businesses, the thing that it makes the most sense to do is like find where your users go to conferences, which is probably like in Lincoln, Nebraska, and go there.
Yeah.
And they had a very specific way they did it. Like you email the conference organizers to get the list of companies that are going to be there. You try to set up meetings before you even get there, and then you spend all day in meetings, just like asking jobs to be done kind of questions. Plus, like will you use my thing basically? I don't think you would enjoy that, but I think it'd be very fruitful for your type of app.
It seems like that wouldn't be worthwhile. I do have a $500 a month plan though, so like if I did a conference like that and I got one customer at $500 a month, that would be worth it. It would blow my mind if I could figure out a way to make that work. I also don't know that I would want for that to work. Like, what would happen if I realized, oh man, I can grow this business 25% per month if I am traveling for half the month, I don't know that that's a business I would want to be running. I don't. I like traveling for fun, but like I don't want to have to travel. One of my one of the cool things that happened to me in traveling to MicroConf Europe, I ended up being on the same plane as Mike Tabor, and the plane that we were on had some sort of a mechanical malfunction. Passengers reported that there was smoke coming from the cockpit. I still don't know what happened, but midway through the flight, the plane turned around and went straight back to the airport it came from in London. And Mike was telling me about how much he has flown. He has been on something like in the thousands of flights, and at one point in his life was flying for 200 days a year. And he showed me his Marriott app, and his Marriott app has like 600 logged nights that he's spent in Marriott's. I was like, oh my God, he's at like the super platinum diamond thing. When he goes and stays at a Marriott, they're like, oh my gosh, Mike, welcome back. Here is your free gift, and here is your robe, and here are your chocolates. And, but he was describing what it was like doing all this traveling, and I found myself feeling sad that I would not want to be doing that. So I think I want to table that one for now. Several good takeaways from this, though, of like, I like framing, making new files as engineering as marketing. I like having a word for integration marketing, and I think there's ground to be gained in content marketing, and then some sort of a hybrid of like making landing pages for verticals, and then doing either display ads or AdWords or Facebook ads that could also be videos for those verticals. So good. This is clarifying. I think I'm going to come to you next week with experiments for the ones of those that feel the most tenable of experiments that I'd like to do, and I especially like noting that I don't need to actually do the work. I could run an experiment that's just doing initial research for that thing. So like engineering is marketing, integration marketing, making a plugin for each of these stores. The experiment does not have to look like I made the plugin. The experiment could look like I want to talk to people who have done this plugin, and I have an easy way to get in that. Okay, cool. This feels good. This is very clarifying. And I feel like I've got some juicy work to get done, and I'm excited that I am home and have the bandwidth and the desk to do those experiments.
All right. Well, that sounds good. I'm excited to see what you come up with for next week.
Thank you. So am I. And likewise. Chris, that's all I got.
That's all I got too.
Then I'll see you next week. Goodbye.